Hi, my name is Emily Kaster. I'll be providing a summary of my thesis research conducted in 2021 with support from the Center for Homeland Defense and Security. This module has two objectives. By the end of the module, you should be able to, 1, understand the concept of professionalization and how it applies to various disciplines in the Homeland Security enterprise, and 2, be able to provide examples of how frameworks can be applied to answer research questions. Before we dive into the content of this module, I'm going to define two key terms. A profession is an occupation or a line of work with a body of knowledge that members acquire through training. Professions also have a set of cultural norms among professionals. Some commonly referenced professions include law, medicine, and firefighting. Professionalization is the process where a profession corresponds with a professional model. I'll explain those characteristics further in a few slides. Occupations can professionalize or regress over time. My CHDS cohort was comprised of various Homeland Security disciplines. My classmates included police officers, lawyers, firefighters, and pilots. To enter those professions, my peers attended training schools and obtained certification to demonstrate their competence in their line of work. I realized that as an emergency manager in the cohort, I represented an occupation that is not commonly recognized as a profession. As a result, my research question focused on the professionalization of emergency management in my state. I wanted to learn whether emergency management had professionalized and how it could be improved upon. The problem is not that emergency managers are unprofessional. The problem is that the role of the emergency manager is becoming increasingly challenging. First, the disaster landscape is changing. The US continues to set records for billion-dollar disasters each year. Second, for decades, scholars have stated that the role of the emergency manager is becoming more complex. Third, it goes without saying that the stakes of this work are high. In any profession, incompetent or unethical practitioners can do harm. Emergency managers have made headlines for poor disaster responses that resulted in catastrophic outcomes. Finally, emergency management, training, job descriptions, authorities, etc., vary from state to state. In Maine, professional standards do not yet exist for emergency managers. Currently, a Maine emergency manager tasked to write an evacuation plan may have no experience or training on that topic. Recognizing that this is a complex problem, I structured my research to include expert opinions and consider the topic from two different perspectives. I examined this research question through the lenses of structure and culture. Emergency management scholars, including Dr. Spiro, Dr. Irby Jr., and Mr. Jeff Bird, all produced dissertations and theses that were integral to my research design. They introduced me to frameworks developed by Walensky and Hall. To assess the degree of structural professionalization, I relied on Walensky's framework. Walensky developed this framework by analyzing the growth and decay of 18 professions during the 1960s. Through a document review and interviews with key stakeholders, I examined the degree of structural professionalization in Maine. I also relied on Richard Hall's cultural framework in my survey of public sector emergency management practitioners in Maine. Hall's professionalism inventory has been applied in studies internationally for decades, demonstrating reliability of the survey instrument. To assess the degree of structural professionalization, I dug through employment data, training records, university websites, association membership records, state statute, certification records, and my interview transcripts. Maine does demonstrate some growth and structural professionalization. Within the state, several emergency management higher education programs have emerged. Nationally, a plethora of training institutions are available to emergency managers looking to hone their skills. Maine also has a strong network of professional associations such as the Maine Association of Local Emergency Managers, that provide opportunities to collectively advance the profession. However, Maine does lack full-time emergency management jobs, legislative oversight of the work, and a code of ethics for practitioners. 92 emergency managers representing 15 of Maine's 16 counties participated in the research survey assessing cultural professionalization. Respondents indicated a high regard for professional associations, continuing competence, and a sense of calling to their work. On the other hand, survey responses indicated a lack of autonomy, self-regulation, and sense of public service among practitioners. Statistically significant variances emerged among demographic groups responding to the survey. As an example, full-time emergency managers self-reported as stronger advocates of professional organizations than part-time emergency managers. Survey responses indicate that practitioners in Maine believe in the prospect of professionalization, and the majority support those efforts. This research finding surprised me because I anticipated more hesitation from practitioners to challenge the status quo. This survey provided the first snapshot of emergency managers in Maine. My peers are educated, primarily coming to emergency management as a second career, and maintain additional roles beyond emergency management. Emergency management has professionalized to some degree in Maine, but more work is needed to achieve status as a bona fide profession. In my thesis, I advocate for a number of recommendations to advance emergency management while maintaining the balance between education and experience in a rural state. These recommendations will require generational work and the cooperation of stakeholders at all levels. The most important recommendation is to gain the support of elected and appointed officials towards emergency management. These officials are critical to the success of programs because they hire emergency managers, set funding levels, and also priorities. Additional recommendations focus on education and training for emergency managers and internships to provide opportunities for the next generation of emergency managers. Finally, I propose that a code of ethics should be adopted in Maine. The research summarized in this module represents one step forward in the academic discussion on the professionalization of emergency management. Consequently, this topic could be researched from several different perspectives in the future. Students may explore growth or regress in professionalization over time, or use different frameworks for their measurement. Students could also research professionalization in other geographic areas or within other Homeland Security disciplines for comparison. Through professionalization, we can ensure that the appropriate supports are in place for the next generation of practitioners. Thank you.